Okay folks, so in this lecture we're going to cover how to use Excel's autofill feature. Now this feature is really great and super time saving when you're entering data, commonly in a pattern type format. So for example, if you're typing numbers sequentially, or you're typing in dates, or days, or naming conventions. Now you fill in the data using Excel's autofill feature using what we call the fill handle. And most commonly, when you do fill in data, it's normally going downwards. You can also use Excel's autofill feature for filling cells in with formulas too, but we will cover that later on in the course once we've covered formulas as a topic and subject as a whole. Now there are two ways to use Excel's autofill feature. The first is using the mouse and the second is using the ribbon. Now from experience, overwhelmingly the mouse method is much more user-friendly, so we'll be going with that method in this lecture. Okay. So let's get started with a couple of examples. Right, so the first example is a number-based example. Right, now have you ever had a situation where you need to enter in numbers sequentially? For example, in a table or just a simple list. Now without using Excel's autofill feature, if we were to do this manually, we'd basically just type it in. So 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. Okay, now that was okay-ish in terms of time, but could it be done quicker? The answer is yes. Now, we just typed up to number 10, but imagine if you had 50 or 100 or 1,000 numbers to type in. It would not be feasible to do it manually. So, this is where Excel's autofill feature comes in. Right, I'm just going to delete those numbers that we typed. Now, using Excel's autofill feature, I'm going to show you a real quick way that we can get those numbers to be entered in. There. You see that, folks? Just a few seconds. So, let's rewind and see exactly what we did. Right. Now, what I did is that I moved my mouse to the bottom right-hand square of our cell selection cursor. And what this does is that it changes our mouse cursor to black crosshairs. Now this is called the fill handle. So, using the fill handle, we then drag down. Now, to actually activate our fill handle, we basically use the left-hand mouse button, press and hold it. Now, before we do that, I just want you to pay attention to this bit of the screen here. And this is going to change when we press our left-hand mouse button. There. You see that, folks? It's changed, and it's asking us to drag outside selection to extend the series or fill, or drag inside to clear. Now, for the last bit, just pause and keep that in your head for a moment. Drag inside to clear, because we're going to come back to it. Drag outside selection to extend series or fill. So what this is basically saying is, while we're holding down the left-hand mouse button, you can see that if I go to the right-hand side, our selection is getting extended. In other words, our cell selection box is becoming extended. Now, we can either go to the right-hand side, to the left-hand side, up or down. Now, as mentioned before, you most commonly fill in data going downwards. So, let's go all the way down to cell 25. And as you can see, folks, we've got our little tooltip appearing which says 1. So what this is basically telling us is that Excel, by default, will fill all these cells with the number 1. So if I let go of the left-hand mouse button, you can see that it's filled all these cells with 1. Now, if I just click here on this little box which has popped up called AutoFill Options, we've got a couple of options. Now, just starting from the bottom, Flash Fill, we're going to cover that in a later lecture, folks, so we're going to ignore that for the moment. Fill without formatting and fill formatting only. Now, again, from experience, I found that most people don't really use these options, folks, so we're going to leave that to the side. The option that we're interested in is Fill Series. And what this will do is that it will tell Excel to fill our selected series from 1 to 10, because Excel will sense that we've gone from cell C16 to cell C25, and that we want to fill the series, and it will interpretate that word fill, in this instance, as incrementally advancing the numbers from 1 all the way through to 10. So if I click here, you can see that it's filled in the numbers. Now, obviously, folks, because I've explained it, the actual process took a few minutes. But now that you have the explanation, you can actually go ahead and repeat it, and it'll be super quick. Just a few seconds, if not less. Right, so let's look at another example, dates. Now, often, similar to numbers, you've got to enter in dates. So, again, if I click on our cell here, using the left-hand mouse button, press and hold over the bottom right-hand side of your cell selection box to activate the fill handle. Drag all the way down. Now in this instance, folks, you can see that our tooltip is actually showing the incremental dates because Excel is sensing that we want to increment the dates. So if I let go, you can see that Excel has incremented the dates. Now again, if I click on our AutoFill options, you can also see Excel has given us a couple of more options in addition to the ones we had previous, and that includes fill days, fill weekdays, fill months, and fill years. Now again, if we select any of these, it will just fill them in accordingly. So, with regards to fill days, this will pretty much be the same as our dates. See? However, where it gets more interesting is if we go on to fill weekdays, or fill months, or fill years. So for example, you might have a project where you only want to include, say, Monday to Friday, and exclude the weekend. So if you go fill weekdays, now all these days here, none of them will include Saturday or Sunday. If we click on fill months, you can see that where we had the 18th of May 2018, the pattern has then jumped to the 18th of every month. Similarly, for fill years, what it did here is that it incremented the year, but kept the month the same, and the day. So you see, folks, you've got a couple of options in which you can play around. Now, most commonly, people would tend to go for fill series, which is basically just incrementing the dates one by one. Now, you can do variations on this, folks. For example, if you want to, say, count every 3 days, how would you do that? Well, if I just click here and give an example of, say, the 1st of March 2018, and then let's just say we count 3 days including the 1st, that would take us to the 3rd of March. Right. Now, in this instance, what you have to do, you have to basically let Excel know you want it to go up by 3 days, including the day itself. So, what you need to do is select both entries, then select the fill handle, then drag down, then let go. And as you can see, Excel has interpreted both cells being selected and sensed that the pattern here is every 3 days, including the day itself, and has incremented everything accordingly. So, that's how you use autofill to increment dates in Microsoft Excel. Right, now let's look at another example where we're basically referencing products. So product 1, product 2, product 3, product 4, and so forth. Again, drag down using the fill handle, and you can see Excel's tooltip is changing accordingly as we move down, and it takes us all the way to product 10. Then let go. There. You see that, folks? Excel has interpreted the pattern and filled it in accordingly. Now, folks, remember, if you go into the autofill options, if you select, for example, copy cells, you'll just get the same product number being repeated. So always keep that in mind. Primarily, these two options are the ones you're going to use, copy cells or fill series. Right. Now, sometimes when you do financial reports, you've often got quarters. So, again, Excel recognizes the quarter terminology, and if you use the fill handle to drag down, it will appropriately show all the quarters and then repeat after quarter 4. So here we got quarters 1 to 4, then 1 to 4 again. Right, let's take another example of days. So this is a real interesting one, folks. if we drag down and we go all the way to Wednesday, right, sometimes you don't want to include the weekends. So what you could do is click on the autofill options and just say fill weekdays. There. And Excel will exclude Saturday and Sunday. So, as you can see folks, autofill is actually really quite handy. Now, we've incremented the data all going downwards, but you can go across or above. So, I'll give you an example. If I go back to our number example, and using the fill handle, drag to the right hand side, you can see that Excel has copied the series of data. So we got 111. If I just click on our autofill options and go to fill series, there, you can see that Excel has incrementally filled our series going across. So you see folks, you can do this in any direction. Now earlier on folks, when our status bar changed to display the text when we used the fill handle, we had two messages. The first one was saying drag outside selection to extend series or fill, and drag inside to clear. So, just to reference the last bit, it basically means this. Let's say I want to extend this series, so I want to go 3, 4, 5. Using the fill handle, I'll drag. Now, if I let go, as you can see, it's copied our series as 3, 3, 3. So, let's say I click on these options and I go to fill series. So I've got 3, 4, 5. Now, suppose I change my mind and I decide I don't want 4, 5 there. What would I do? Well, you can press delete, but that would get rid of the number 3 as well. The other way is to basically use the fill handle, press and hold down with your left-hand mouse button, and then drag back to number 3. And as you can see, 4 and 5 become faded out. Then let go. There. So that's what it means, folks, when it says drag inside to clear. Okay, so I hope you can see just how super time-saving Excel's autofill is. That concludes this lecture. We have seen, through a number of different examples, how Excel's autofill feature can be used to either copy a series, fill a series, and of that, basically do variations of filling a series. So for example, with days, we've seen how we can exclude the weekends, for example. If there are any questions or queries, folks, please do feel free to reach out. Thank you, and I'll see you in the next lecture.